Hello everyone and welcome to Game 10 of the World Chess Championship match between Jan Nepomniachtchi and the Ding Liren. The score is 5 points for Jan, 4 points for Ding, and the Ding now has the white pieces. He will try to win the game to equalize the score and then hopefully even take a lead in the match, because so far only Jan's been taking the lead and the Ding has been equalizing. Now this is already Game 10. I know it feels like the championship started like yesterday, but already 9 incredible games have been played. Okay, the Berlin defense one, the previous one, wasn't all that spectacular. But the first 8 truly incredible. So here we will have a sort of a repetition from game 4, but an early deviation from it. And Ding opens with pawn to c4. He again goes for the English opening. And of course, as I did it in every video, here the first ceremonial move was made by none other than Kunsul Zakaria. She's the president of the National Academy of Science of Kazakhstan and the developer of Kazakhstan's COVID vaccine. So there we have it. First move being played. I don't know what she played. It's a sort of a weird angle, but that doesn't look like she made it c4. So let's just say Ding retracted it, and then he just played c4. So there we have it. And Jan replies the same as he did in game 4. We have knight to f6, knight to c3, and now pawn to e5. We have knight to f3 and knight to c6. The 4 knights of the English are on the board. And here in game 3 we had pawn to e3, but here Ding goes for the early pawn to e4. And it's very interesting that Ding will actually be playing a game Nepo played 3 years ago in Title Tuesday with the white pieces. So I don't know how much of that Nepo actually remembers when he's playing this game, or is it some sort of his preparation that he used for something years ago. But it is very interesting. And here the top move is bishop to b4. We have bishop to c5. And now knight captures on e5. This makes it possible because the bishop is on c5. The bishop on b4 would not allow this. And you have basically one good option here. You could play something in Morphy's style like castles, but a standard way to play this is knight captures on e5. I know you guys are wondering, but what about bishop captures on f2? Can't we just mess up white's pawn structure and then capture back the piece? Well, you could. The problem is after knight captures, it looks like you've achieved something, but you really don't have anything. After d4, your pieces are just weird. Even if you give this check, the white king is perfectly happy on g1. And now how do you continue? Let's say d6, you want to develop something, but there's no way to bring more pieces into the attack. White will just kick away your knight, and after you move the knight, bishop g5, and it's a very bad position for black. Not a lot to do here. If you ever castle, white can always just capture, mess up your pawn structure. You're going to play bishop d3, move the king, play rook to f1. You can artificially castle. You can do whatever you want here. So that's why knight captures on e5 is the main move here. We have pawn to d4, winning back the piece, and now bishop goes to the main square, basically the b4 square. D captures on e5, knight captures on e4, and now not queen to d4, but rather queen to f3. Ding plays all the moves Jan played in that Title Tuesday game that we mentioned. Knight captures on c3, b captures, chasing away the bishop, and now there are many retreats possible here, much like in the Evans Gambit when the bishop on b4 is challenged by playing c3. You can go bishop to a5, you can go bishop to c5, you can go bishop to e7, you can even go bishop to f8, and it makes sense in some lines because the queen wants to come to g3 and put pressure on that pawn here. Jan plays bishop to c5, and this is that rare move. It's only been played a handful of times, plus in that one game Jan played online. And here we have queen to g3. Of course, Ding puts pressure on the g7 pawn, and now king to f8. And this is necessary. Just to give you an idea of what's happening if you castle, bishop to g5. And now you can't really move the queen because bishop f6 and you're just lost or close to lost. So after bishop to e7, bishop to h6 now threatens checkmate. And after g6, you will play pawn to h4, pawn to h5, open up the h file, and so on. White will have a very nice attack very early on in the game. So after g3, Nepo just played king to f8. And as he does play the French with the black pieces, I'm sure he's no stranger to putting his king on f8, and it can be such an annoying move to meet when you play white. But okay, here we have bishop to e2. You could also consider some other moves like bishop to d3, bishop to f4, bishop to g5, even attack the queen, but here it's not so impressive because the queen just moves. Queen e8, and you don't have anything here because the king is not on g8. So instead, bishop to e2, nicely developing. And now pawn to d6. Nepo challenges Ding's central pawn here. And the situation on the clock is an hour and 30 minutes for Ding and an hour and 56 minutes for Nepo. So Nepo basically blitzed all of this out. He is not even thinking here. We have bishop to f4 by Ding, now queen to e7, and now rook to d1. Just putting more pressure on that d6 pawn, and Nepo just plays pawn to h5. He says if you castle now, could be a little bit dangerous, but if you go for something like queen to, bishop to g5, then it could be even more dangerous. And there are so many awesome lines here. Look at this. If bishop g5, you can never capture here, because after queen captures and pawn captures, this will just be checkmate. That's mate in one. So what you will have to do here after bishop g5 is actually play f6, and this is something that the Ding can go for. For example, captures and you go back bishop to e3. It looks like you've done a lot, but who is really attacking here? That's the question. After rook to g8 attacks the queen has to move somewhere, otherwise you lose the g2 pawn. So let's say bishop to h6 check, first king f7. Now you move the queen, let's say queen to d3, now even rook to g6. You don't want to allow queen to h7 check, so rook to g6. And now let's say bishop back to e3, black will trade, captures, and bishop to g4. Black solves all of his problems, and it might even be white who has problems playing this position. So while it looks like an incredible idea, f6 for black will be very strong here. So here, Ding just castled, and it is in fact now, as of move 14, that we have a completely new game. And in this, with this move, Ding deviates from the game that Nepo played. And interestingly, in that game, Jan faced h5. He just challenged it with h4. So that's how Jan continued. Jan won that game very nicely against Jose Gabriel Cardoso. But here we have castles, and now we have pawn to h4 by Jan, just challenging that queen. We have queen to d3 now. You could also play queen to f3. It's a fine square, but it asks a lot of questions. For example, d captures, bishop captures, queen captures, rook to d8 with check. What is happening here? After king to e7, rook captures on h8. There's this very nasty bishop to g4 move, and now you don't really have enough to give up the queen. For example, if you play rook captures on a8, bishop captures on f3, bishop captures. Okay, you have two rooks for the queen, but let's say a move like h3 or a move like g5, and maybe doesn't feel sufficient. So black would be better here. What you could do is after this bishop to g4 move, just play queen captures on g4, and okay, then rook captures back on h8. You're not down the exchange, and this is again very much playable. But it still feels like black is getting too much out of this. So Ding just played queen to d3, and now we have pawn to g5 by Jan. You could also consider some other moves like bishop to e6, let's say pawn to h3 right away, but Jan basically forces a queen trade with this pawn to g5 move. And okay, e captures on d6. I don't think Ding was happy with the queen trade here, because Jan is accepting being down a pawn if he goes into the endgame, but it's the best that the Ding can take out of the position after g5 has been played. So c captures, bishop captures, we have queen captures on d6, queen captures, bishop captures, and rook captures, and finally after this capture fest is over, bishop to e6. And okay, Jan is down a pawn, but he will no longer be under any pressure. He can get his rooks into the game, and he has the double c pawn to play against. So Ding also has some issues to take care of, and he plays pawn to f4. Of course, he wants to open up the f file to go after the black king, and the situation on the clock is evened out a little bit. Ding has an hour and 7 minutes on the clock, whereas Jan has an hour and 15 minutes on the clock. And okay, king to e7. Of course, Jan knows that Ding will open up the f file, so you don't want the king on the f file, attacking the rook here also. Rook to d4, we have g captures on f4. You can't really play g4. If you play g4, although, it looks maybe interesting, f5 just blunders a pawn, so not happening. So instead, g captures on f4. We have rook captures on f4, but not, rook captures on f4. You could also play this rook captures, but there's really nothing to do on the f file. Pawn to h3, and now, of course, pawn to g4. And now the real question is, okay, Ding has the weak c pawns here, but his bishop and the rooks are nicely defending that. Can he in any way go after the h3 pawn? How could he win the h3 pawn? Well, one way to do it is you could just trade all the rooks and the bishop, and then just play king f2, king g3, and pick up that pawn. If he can do that, then he of course will win the game. He's gonna have a king and pawn endgame. He's gonna be up a pawn. The problem is Nepo will of course never allow the trade of everything. So here we have rook 8 to c8. An interesting approach was rook 8 to g8. Definitely looks fine here. And after king to f2, there's even pawn to f5. But it's a bit too overambitious for black. The problem is after g captures and this rook to g2 check is given, king to e3, rook captures on h2. The problem is rook f to e4. You will not capture right away. That would be terrible. But you will first play this, and now you will capture with check. And now even if black plays something like rook captures on e2 with check, and king captures and h2, it seems like okay, you're doing okay here. There's rook captures on e6 check, and after king f7 you will just pick up the rook on h8, rook to d7 with check. Now you have to go to the back rank, king f8, rook to d8 with check, king to g7, and now you either best is to just kick away the king, or king to h7, and now you can play rook to d7 with checkmate. So okay, black keeps the rook, keeps the pawn on h2, but he gets checkmated. So although a nice idea to go for something like rook 8 to g8 and pawn to f5, it could only lead to trouble. So Nepo keeps it calm, just a nice rook to c8, putting pressure on the c4 pawn, and also he wants to get his rook into the game somehow. Another way to do it maybe would be to play rook to h6, rook to f6, and then try to get this rook into the game this way. But okay, king f2 by Ding, we have rook to c5 now, and pawn to a4. We have rook to a5, putting pressure on the pawn here, and Ding just plays bishop to d1. And okay, Ding's bishop doing a fine job here, guarding g4, guarding a4, so not a lot to worry about here. And again, Nepo could go for some rook a6, rook to b6, rook to b2 ideas, maybe again rook h6 to f6, it's all possible, but he first just goes for a nice calm b6, no need to rush anything. King to g3 by Ding, and now rook to h6. For the moment this rook cannot move because you would lose this pawn, but it's Ding who has to figure out what to play here. Jan is basically just waiting if Ding wants a draw, or he will try to actually win this up a pawn position. And the situation on the clock is Ding invested some 20 minutes on this king to g3 move. He couldn't find any other way how to improve his position. He's down to 38 minutes. Nepo has an hour on the clock. So here rook f to e4, and now king to f8. Of course, you do not want your king on the e file. Rook to d5 could be very annoying, so just king to f8, and now rook to d8 with check. Again, you can't go back because then rook to d5 again, so king to g7 was played, and now rook to a8. Ding puts pressure on that a7 pawn, and now rook to c5, just offering a trade here. You could go for some tricky lines like bishop to d7, which puts pressure on a4, then we get rook to e7, attacks the bishop, and now rook to d6 defends the bishop, and now let's say bishop to f3, king to f6 chases away the rook, rook to e3, and now rook captures on a4, and king captures on h3. So we could have this trade where we would have the a pawn against the h pawn, sort of a race type game. But Nepo decides to go for rook to c5. He wants something a little less double-edged. So rook captures on a7, and now bishop captures on c4. Rook captures isn't very good, because after rook captures, bishop captures, it's not going to be easy to hold on to. You have two weaknesses, the h3 pawn and this pawn, and let's say you put the bishop somewhere like here, you put the bishop on c6, you put the rook on c6, and you trade off the rooks, then this pawn is weak, then this pawn falls, and white will have excellent winning chances here. So instead, just bishop captures on c4 by Nepo, rook 8 to e7, doubling up on the e file, and now rook h to c6. Everyone thought Nepo would just play bishop to e6 here because it looks very nice. This coordinates the white rooks, but there's this very annoying pawn to c4 move, where you have to be very careful, because if you play rook captures on c4, then you run into this very nasty rook captures on e6 move, and you can resign. You just blunder the piece here. So what you would have to do is bishop captures, and then something like rook to e5, and the game continues. Let's say rook captures, rook to d6, bishop to e2, offers a trade of bishops, captures, rook to d3 check, king h4, and rook to b3, and you would have this type of position. So it's definitely possible, but you have to calculate a lot after pawn to c4. So Nepo just keeps it calm. He just doubles up here, goes after the weak c3 pawn, rook 7 to e5, and and now Nepo just trades. Rook captures. We have bishop to b3. Incredible. Nepo blunders a bishop here. Of course, that is a joke. Nepo can always win it back with a rook captures on c3, and that is exactly what happened here. Bishop captures on b3. There is no more way for Ding to push for advantage here. We have a check here. King to h4. Rook captures on b3, and now with equal material, it's not going to be hard. The rook to b5 was played. Rook to a3. Of course, if you trade, then white will just win the game. Even though for the moment it's equal material, you will lose the h3 pawn, and then the h pawn just marches to victory. So we have to keep the rook. Rook to a3. We have rook captures on b6, rook captures on a4, and now king captures on h3. So Nepo is down a pawn, but this is an elementary rook endgame, and Nepo does not mind showing everyone how it's done. We have pawn to f5. He even gives up another pawn, but he knows that he will win it back, and then he's just down one pawn in a rook endgame, and that's a draw. Pretty much always, but not always. So g captures on f5 was played. g5 doesn't really do all that much, just rook to g4, and you're going to win it back this way. So here just captures on f5. We have rook to f4, and now rook to b5. Ding defends it, but now just king to f6, and you will win back, of course, your pawn. King to g3 was played. Rook captures on f5, rook captures, king captures, now pawn to h4, king to g6, and Nepo, Ding just played pawn to h5 check, gave up the last remaining pawn on the board. Nepo played king captures on h5, and he was in this position on move 45 that the game ended in a draw, as it is a draw by insufficient material. So there you have it, very nicely done. Ding really tried to surprise Nepo with this one, again going for the English, but Jan was just too prepared. He played the first 20 moves with like 5 minutes on the clock. So not going to happen in the English, it would seem, for Ding. Even though, okay, he won game 4 with the English, it was a spectacular game. But Jan said not so fast, not another time. So we'll see what happens in next one, where Jan will have the white pieces. Will we have again the Ruy Lopez? It's hard to say. It's hard for me to imagine that Ding will go for another Berlin, because he needs to bounce back in the match, and he barely got even some playable moves in the last game where he went for the Berlin. So he's gonna have to go for Morphy's defense. He's gonna have to go for a6. And well, we can only hope that we get a Marshall, but I don't think it will happen. So probably some sort of a weird anti-Marshall position again, if Ding is to look for winning chances. But if you haven't seen my yesterday's video, do check it out if you are interested in a very cool Marshall attacking game between John Nunn and Viswanathan Anand. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Given Mana, Barry McMurdoch, Maxwell Shirley, Yondain Gutierrez, and Paul Sass for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the World Chess Championship until it finishes. Tomorrow we are continuing with game 11. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.